Rick, it's Susan. I listened to
Hey,
you and I am just slack-jawed at the endless amount of things that you know, and I
I'm just old.
not as
It's not knowledge, it's just experience from all the years.
yeah, well, I just yeah, I just cannot say how wonderful it all is. Couple things.
Hmm?
Last couple weeks ago, I talked to you about somebody that was having a mental breakdown. I followed your protocols. Things are not going well. I ended up in Dallas last week, kind of with that person so that my son could go to work because she's unable to be left alone. Um, and I didn't think
Give me the details. Like
mental
it's
breakdown. She's having a mental
but
breakdown.
tell me what that means. Like different
She has,
people will mean different things by that.
I completely understand. She's having panic attacks where her body, her pulse will race. It can go to 120, 130. And so that is the first sign, shortness of breath. And then it goes to, she described it to me like she feels like there is a house on fire and her children are inside. And she gets very panicky. And so she did go into an institution for a week. She's an outpatient. She's on a ton of meds. Um, they're just changing her meds all the time. Um,
But she's not like hearing voices. She's not.
she has not mentioned that. You called her, you and Donna both called her hypersensitive.
Mhm.
And she's not aware of it. She doesn't believe in what I do. But I will say that I would go over there first thing in the morning at 7 so that she could, so my son could go to work. And I breathed your oils for the first hour or two and did protocols with them. And she was curious. And so she would breathe them with me. And when you said, will she breathe oils? And I said, no. And I was wrong, happily. So I brought some oils for her in case she decided she would. So I brought her some Cape Snowbush and some galbanum and left them with her. But if there was something else, I would send them to her.
Okay, so I mean, from the parts you just told me, that sound like, how long is that lasting? Is she like in that all day? Is she in that and then it
She,
goes away and then it comes back?
she can be. It's only medication like Xanax or some other ones
Yeah,
that
because it sounds like panic attacks. Like, is she just having, why, how are they differentiating between panic attacks and like a mental break? Like,
I
is there
don't
other
know.
symptoms?
I don't think so. She's in a great deal of denial. She thinks it's going to be medical, but the rest of us are not in that. But it anyway.
Is there something going on in her life that's causing like unresolved, or she's not wanting to deal with, or something like that?
She has, there were red flags even before this. She has some emotional instability. Um, and
Like,
then
what does that mean? Like, she has outbursts, or she gets depressed, or she gets.
she's overly sensitive to absolutely everything. And it's always everybody else's fault. And so she has to corral everybody around her to behave in a certain way so that
Okay.
she can be happy.
Okay. Is she grinding on other people? Like, they
Oh,
did this and they did that, they said this,
oh.
they said that. Yeah. Is she like not just jaw tension, but is she going like this a lot?
I didn't notice. I did not see her do that.
Okay. Okay, give me a second here. Any repetitive behaviors that you're aware of, like little habits or routines that she has to do to get through the day? Very common
Not,
with panic attacks.
I did not see anything that I was there for 3 days.
Okay.
And I didn't see anything that I was aware of.
Hmm.
And if you can't,
How old is she?
38. And if you can't, that's okay. That wasn't my big question. I thought that was going to be a little question.
I suspect that, well, I don't have to say it, but
Please do.
I think, you know, along with the, I mean, she definitely is having panic attacks. I mean, it sounds like she's diagnosed with having panic attacks, but I think there's a little OCD there.
Okay. And I mentioned last time, and I forgot to mention this time, there was some mushrooms that they used several days before they started.
Hmm.
And you mentioned, we talked about webbing last time, how the webbing could have torn, and so,
Did she have
but
these issues prior to this or
no,
no?
the behaviors of um, overly sensitive to everyone else's behaviors, yes.
And she will work with the oils a little bit.
Yeah, if I send it to her, she has a meditation she likes, and I said, add an oil to the meditation, that might really help. The meditation goes through the different chakras.
Okay, let's try something. It's going to be a few different things, but let's try it.
Okay.
Um, so first off, panic attacks are kind of, they can be a little bit hard to treat because you're constantly dealing with somebody who, like you said, they feel like something really bad's about to happen, and you know, they go into a panic and then you can't really direct them very well. Like, so I mean, you can try to calm it down in it, but a lot of times you just have to wait for them to get tired and then treat them like after the fact. And so, you know, the first thing that we like to do with like panic attacks, there's a few things. So first thing is to slow down and deepen the breath. And so um, spikenard can help to calm down the respiratory rate. It doesn't necessarily deepen the breath, but it can slow things down. A lang lang actually slows it down even more, but I'm liking the idea of her putting spikenard on her arms and legs. And part of the reason is it would be calming to the central nervous system, which her nervous system is highly agitated. And then by putting it on the arms and legs, you're calming down the peripheral part of the nervous system, and it will help her to process emotions a little bit better. So the spikenard you could use both for breathing, and then applying it on the arms is just naturally going to start calming down the peripheral nerves and then the central nervous system. And so even when she's inhaling it, she could even think of her crown or put a little dab on the top of her head. I like that. Deepening the breath, you can use something like hyssop or myrtle or Sitka, you know, larch would be really good. And that would just be inhaling it, right? I also like the idea of using Petitgrin with her. Like inhaling some Petitgrin, you could rub it on her feet, you could just anywhere you can get it on her body, or if you'll just sit and inhale it quite a bit. The other one, like if you deepen the breath and calm down the nervous system, a lot of times the nervous system will calm down. Tarragon can take them a little bit out of that like early stage of that trauma response or that stress response. It's very calming and soothing to the emotions, and so tarragon could potentially be used. Um, but here's the thing, like a lot of a lot of panic attacks are physiological driven, but they're physiological along with physiological emotion, right? Then there is some mental components, or you could say psychological components, that can be because of things going on in the environment. They feel out of control. They, there's all kinds of things that can happen, right? There's that component. And then like if you keep going down that rabbit hole, a lot of times it's something painful that is potentially needing to be integrated, and they just don't want to do it, right? They don't want to let it in. It's too painful, it's too hard, it's too scary. It could be any version of that, but every time it starts to kind of come in, they have the panic attack. And so eventually that could actually start cultivating even a little bit of like the OCD, where the repetition and the rituals, it just they just help to like kind of manage it. But if you really look at what's happening with OCD, they're usually grinding on people. Like, this person did this, they talk to this person more than they talk to me. Why would you say that? Why would you say this? Like, they do a lot of like that, and
You are speaking truth, my friend.
yeah. So that's why I think, like, just when I look at her, it looks a little OCD-ish. Like, I wouldn't say she has like full-blown OCD, but it's just they get like wound up, and they'll even go, well, if I do this, what is this person going to say? What is that person going to say? What is this person going to think of me? Why would they think that way? They just do a lot of that. And so you just got to start calming everything down. Here's the difficulty: when you start calming everything down, that thing that's having a hard time getting in the heart, they become more aware of it. And so that's why it's such a hard condition to treat, because it's like you're calming it down, they become more aware of it, so then they kind of go back to it. So it's a little bit of like going back and forth, and then at some point they do reach this point where it like a switch flips, and then they can process through it, because the thing that's coming in the heart usually has been made bigger in their mind than what is happening. Doesn't mean that it's not painful. It doesn't mean that it's not hard. It doesn't mean change. But even like what other people see, I guarantee it's much bigger in her head. Like it's very common for people to make it a little bit bigger in their head, but when there's like OCD and a little bit of panic, they've made it into a really big monster. And so you're literally just showing her that it's not a monster, it's just something normal, and it takes a lot of patience to treat this, by the way. Like, there's literally times where when they're in the middle of it, you're not going to talk any sense to them. You almost have to wait till the exhaustion happens afterwards, and they're a little bit more cognitive. That's the time to talk to them. But in the state, just keep them stable, try to get them to breathe, try to do, several patients that I used to do this thing where they'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just a thing to distract their mind so they can ride the wave of whatever was happening. And, you can even see that's a little OCD-ish even. Like, like if I'm in the most stress, I don't stop and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it was almost like a healthy version of it. It was like how they rode through, so they didn't have to take medication, because they knew there was a panic attack. They go, I just got to make it through the panic attack, and then I'll be okay. And so try those things and see how much she'll participate, and then see how much it helps, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't look like it's too endocrine oriented right now. Like OCD is a lot of times some stuff with the basal ganglia. That should definitely have any issues with the basal ganglia, but got to break the pattern with it. I have another question about that. So she's taking Xanax, correct?
They've changed her medication so many times. I don't know which one she's taking now.
I would be very curious if she's taking Xanax, just like,
She did initially, but it only has a 4 hour,
right.
and so she's now taking one that has an 8 hour life.
So when she's taking it 8 hours, 3 times a day,
Well,
right?
yeah, and a host of other drugs as well. She's taking
What,
the ones that are long-term for depression, and yeah, they just keep changing her meds every time she
yeah.
goes.
So yeah, I mean, they're problem solving. That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
The thing that, like, I would say, it depends on the physician and the approach, but in the old days, they would have people take the Xanax when they felt the panic attack coming on. If she's on Xanax, she needs to not do that. She just needs to take it like a couple of times a day, like how the doctor prescribes, and not just take it when she's starting to have the panic, because that will cause a like an emotional addiction to it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very addictive medication to begin with, but if you tie it in, like every time you have a panic, you're going to take a pill. Anytime she starts to feel a little stressed, she's going to have a panic so that she can take a pill. Like that behavior needs to be like nipped in the bud.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will share that, especially with my son.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I know we're out of time, but I have another question.